So I'm guessing we wait a little bit until we get a quorum. And can people hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Good.
I can hear you just fine.
That's great. Okay, I guess we have a quorum. This is terrible because staff changes so much. Do we have a staff person with us?
Elisa is checking in right now. I can see her name.
Great.
Hello.
Hello
here.
there. Good. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order at 4:03. And we will go ahead and start the regular meeting. And the first question is, are there citizens to be heard who want to talk? It's kind of a 3-minute time where you get to comment on things if you would like.
I do not see anybody currently in the waiting room to speak.
Great, okay. And second is ex parte communication, just making sure that anybody doesn't have any communications or disclosures they'd like to make. Okay, I'm going to guess that's good for ex parte communications. Next item is approval of the minutes. And I wasn't actually at the last meeting. Any?
I'll move to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which would be September 13th.
Wait, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. This is Makeda, by the way.
Great. I'm going to take that as unanimous unless anybody disagrees. And the next item is a county commission report from Trish, who I think isn't here yet.
I had a feeling that she might have said she was going to be out of town for this meeting. And that we were going to maybe have somebody else coming and filling in for her from the commission, sorry. But I don't think that ever materialized.
Okay, if that person shows up later on, we can delay that report. This may end up being a record short meeting. So next is basically updates on the overnight accommodations overlay, data gathering and research. That, I guess, is a staff report.
Yeah, so I can give you a little update on our progress. I have to say it's been a little bit on the back burner. Just when we had last week, we were a little short staffed with our director out of town for the whole week. And so we're currently figuring out the actual ratio for the overnight rentals versus current long-term housing units. And I did get some really helpful information though from Commissioner Walker at the last County Commission meeting. He sent over some work that had been previously, basically the calculation that had been the numbers that had been come up with back in 2019 for the ordinance, and then some of his handiwork to update those numbers. So I have that in front of me. I don't know if I'm still trying to kind of vet the numbers and compare against other sources of information. But basically, we had, his update is that we had 889 vested units that are now constructed. Those are the OAO units. Compared to 2019, there are now 889 that were not constructed that now are. And so there's still quite a large number that need to be constructed that would be left to come down into that calculation. But the number of primary dwelling units or long-term housing units, that is something I'm still trying to nail down. So I'm working with the treasurer on gathering that data. And then the other thing that we were tasked with is to look into kind of comparable planning departments and seeing if there are any examples out there for different categories of overnight rental uses, such that would be more reflective of the glamping or luxury retreats that are not like a fully developed campground per se, but more of a small scale, like 16 to 20 maximum patrons that would be staying in their retreat at a time. And so we're looking into that. I found a few examples in Utah, actually. Kane County is one of them that has some, actually a lot of glamping kind of type projects that are already on the ground in Kane County. And then I know I've seen a few in Washington County out near Zion National Park and that area in Springdale. So I'm checking in kind of with our local Utah counties to see what they're doing with that kind of use, because it is definitely more and more common. And we are going to be looking at, we're bringing 2 of those OAO applications for rezones at the next Planning Commission meeting, which, they're looking at this, what I just explained, basically a very small capacity of folks that would be part of that. And one of them is like a educational astronomy type related retreat, and the other one would be more of like a luxury high end. And so there's like the conversation from our last meeting was, what could we possibly include in maybe a new definition and other things that we could require within that would be kind of encouraging really exemplary projects that would be satisfying this use, but also bringing about a public good. And so one of those things that we've talked about with the applicants was possibly setting aside a large amount of the property for public use or for conservation easement. And so, yeah, we're still in the brainstorming stage on trying to come up with some ideas on how to sort of define that use. And I don't think we need to necessarily, well, I know Emily had mentioned to not, we don't want to be planning around individual applicants' projects. So I don't think there's a rush to get something, you know, changed in our code or anything like that super fast, but it's something that we want to, I gather that the Planning Commission from the last meeting want to kind of look at still. So that, yeah, that's that. And by the next meeting, I would like to definitely bring more of a solid update with those numbers for the ratio and more ideas that we've come up with. When I have John back in the office, I really want to kind of work with him on those. So.
Great. I do remember the ratio that was actually, I think when we made the OAO, it was in the ordinance. I can't remember exactly what it was the ratio of, but I'd be, as you do this research, of course, there's these kind of overnight rentals. I don't actually know how they get defined, but however they are defined, I'd be interested also in the number of units that are primary residence and then secondary residence, which I think you can get off off taxes. I don't know how easy that is to do, but you know, people also have second homes. If they aren't renting them out, then they probably aren't available to people who work here. So I'd be interested in probably overnight rentals, primary residence, and secondary residence. I don't know how easy it is to get that data.
Well, no, you're right, OB. That is exactly what I was asking for from the treasurer, from Chris Kaufman, and he did confirm that he can gather that data, and he's going to work on that for me over the next few days. And then there's the one question though is how to parse out, I guess, within that data.
Yes.
There's a little bit of ambiguity in terms of apartments. And so that's where we could actually do a little bit more digging and find out how many units are in each apartment, because each apartment building is only counted as one unit, I guess. And so we kind of want to have a better idea of what those long-term rentals are, because it's not just people owning houses, but also the long-term rental picture. So.
And then I'm guessing you're going to do that kind of research. We will eventually have to make kind of decisions on whether we treat dude ranches, bed and breakfast, hotels, overnight housing, Airbnb differently.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea from the last meeting, was to just to kind of determine whether those have different impacts based on their location, what their traffic impacts would be in town, or infrastructure impacts, resources, water, all that kind of thing. So, and that would also include the camping category.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly.
Any other questions from people, comments? Well, good. I think we're moving to future considerations, development review team projects, and then OAO applications that are forthcoming.
Jenna, do you want to take the DR?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so as a review for the commissioners, last month, actually September 1st was our most recent meeting at the development review team. We did a review of 4 different projects. 2 of those projects were in fact previously approved HDHO applications, and each of those are moving on to the next stage of planning. So the first one was Murphy Flats. It's located on Murphy Lane, and that was approved as an HDHO 15. It was approved back in 2019, and at this point, it's moving on to the final plat approval of phase 1 of their project. And so this project includes 34 total units on Murphy Lane. The other one is, you may recall it as being named Desert Storm HDHO Rezone. The subdivision is actually going to be called the Manderfield subdivision, and it was an HDHO rezone that was previously approved in October of 2020, and it's moving forward with preliminary plat application. It is a 5-lot subdivision on the corner of Mesa and Desert. Both the projects are still in a final review stage, so we are waiting for a few outstanding items, but those 2 items are moving along pretty nicely. The other 2 projects we took a look at were 2 other preliminary plats, but at this point they're pretty incomplete at this time, and I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable putting them forward for any kind of public consumption. So the next item I would just like to bring to the commissioners to take note of is we are going to be putting on the agenda next month, I believe your next meeting, but next month for sure, an HDHO rezone 15 that was had a previously approved HDHO application. The submission for the rezone was submitted on June 15th of this year. So I guess it did meet that cutoff date for this type of application. It was submitted by Community Rebuilds, and the location is 1131 Lance Avenue. So it's within a small lot residential zoning district. The property is fairly small. It's a 0.1 acre lot that's intended to be subdivided into 2 parcels, and each of those are going to be developed as single family residences for actively employed households. I don't see any challenges with that. Our next section, the next step in our process is, of course, having a public hearing at your next planning commission meeting that's applicable for where the project is. And then it's kind of a little difficult to give you a breakdown of what this coming DRT meeting would be, because again, much like last month, the 2 applications that we have in right now are incomplete, and so not really ready for any kind of public comment on those, but we'll certainly update you at the next applicable meeting with that information. You have any questions on those, commissioners?
Does that then leave us with OAO applications coming forward, or did we really actually, I guess we may or may not have any?
Well, we did. I kind of touched on that just briefly in the earlier discussion. I should have kept those 2 together,
Separate.
actually. Yeah, but basically the 2 rezone applications that will be coming to Planning Commission as public hearings next the next meeting, October 11th, are the Sky Retreat out at Westwater, and that's the one that's kind of educational based on astronomy and very small scale, very low impact. But that one, I think it's on about a 40-acre parcel. And so there's quite a bit of land. And yeah, it looks like a really good project, but that will be coming forward. And then the other one is.
And that's the one also that's closer to Grand Junction than us.
Oh, correct. Yes,
Right?
that is
Yeah,
very
okay.
true. Yep.
Yep.
It's closer to Fruita and Grand Junction, so
Yep.
not a huge impact necessarily on Moab proper. The other one is the Entrada project, and this is out on the Intrepid parcel. It's a large parcel they're looking at purchasing, and it's kind of in the northern corridor, but not right on the highway there. So it's kind of back behind the topography there. So you wouldn't really see it. You would not see it from the highway, basically.
Sorry, who's considering purchasing it?
The Entrada LLC.
Okay.
And so they are proposing another, again, it's a very small scale. They're looking at 16 luxury tent sites. And they're also, the applicant has, in discussions with us, has mentioned the possibility of wanting to actually put some of that land aside for conservation as a public benefit. So they're gonna be presenting all that information more, at the actual meeting, and I'll have all of it in a packet in plenty of time. I really intend to be able to get that agenda packet in a good amount of time before the meeting. So my goal is to get it out on the the Friday prior to October 11th, the previous Friday, not the Friday just before. So you'll have plenty of time to look at all that.
Great. Okay. I now have a question. It might be a staff question as well. So here we are. It is 4:21. We do have citizens to be heard at 5 o'clock. Do we need to reassemble at that time to allow citizens to be heard, or can we, if we want to, end this meeting?
I have never come across this before. We're ending so early. Shoot, I don't know does anybody on the commission have an idea for that?
I mean, I think we did once. It might have been some very early meeting that we started early because we were going to have a very long agenda, and I think we reassembled. Maybe it was that we reassembled, though, for the actual planning commission meeting after workshop. I think maybe that's what we did.
Yeah, I do kind of recall something like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like, Lisa, I can take up a moment or two with a question that I have related to my interpretation of our land use code, maybe while you figure out the answer to that. But while I have the commissioner's ear, because obviously you all have much more experience with this. So in reference to the HDHO application I was explaining to you on Lance Avenue that's going to come forth, the one section in our HDHO special purpose and overlay district section, I'm just going to read this excerpt from you and tell you what I interpret it as, and maybe I can get your confirmation. It says, minimum building site area and lot width. There shall be no minimum building site area, minimum lot width, or maximum lot coverage requirements for individual lots or individual dwelling sites in an HDHO development. Now, my question is that first sentence there shall be no minimum building site area. Is that intended to mean no minimum lot area? So no minimum lot size, as in typically it's either a quarter acre and half acre. Is that to mean no minimum lot size? Now, granted, I could certainly ask Mary all these questions, but while I have your ear and I need to be comfortable to ask you all these questions when Mary is preparing to head out.
Jenna.
Sure. And I can actually give you the section. It says there shall be no minimum building site area. Now, is building site area intended to mean lot size?
I would imagine that's the footprint of the building, is my guess.
Okay, because they also say no maximum lot coverage requirement, which I would think is what you're referencing. Because lot coverage.
That sounds to me, if I may, it
Please.
sounds like what they're getting at is that the space of the building site, which is to include the footprint of the foundation of the building, as well as the mobilization of equipment and materials, is not limited. It doesn't have to be so large. You can take up as little space as you are able or choose to while you're constructing. And also, that second clause, maximum lot coverage requirement, sounds to me like they're saying you are not obligated to cover a certain portion of your lot. If you have hypotheticals here, you have a 4-acre lot and you want to build a 400 square foot tiny home, no one's going to come in and say, well, you need to have a 1,200 square foot home on a lot.
Wouldn't that be a minimum, not a maximum?
Right. To that point, it could also be if you have a 4,000 square foot lot, you are welcome to cover those 4,000 square feet, is what I understand. Okay.
And I would probably caution all of us that we don't actually get to the final interpretation. I mean, those are possible
That's an
interpretations, but of course, the county commission eventually passed this. Mary's a good person, certainly to check in with, and of course, eventually, if there was some dispute, it would be a legal matter of interpretation. But yeah, I don't think it's bad for people to share their interpretations.
All right. And just to share my question, it ultimately, and of course I will just put this to legal to be sure in advance of the public hearing at your next meeting with this. This small 0.1 acre lot on Lance Avenue is intended to be subdivided into 2 lots at about 0.07 acres and 0.09 acres respectively. So I just want to be sure that those are meeting the lot size requirements prior to putting them in front of the commissioners for review.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll put that to legal. I appreciate your ear on that.
Great, thank you. There may be other citizens who want to be heard who are attending at this point.
There is no one in the waiting room right now.
Okay. So we still face this funny question, which I don't know the answer to, but of course, according to our agenda, it says people could come at 5 and make statements. Maybe we should do the terrible thing of reassembling, calling the meeting for now and saying, let's assemble for a quick 5 o'clock get together. That seem right
could be
to
good.
people?
And we could, I have a couple emails out to Emily. I don't think Emily would be able to answer, but and also to Christina, just to see if they know what the protocol would be. So if by chance I get any word back, I can send y'all an email between now and 5 o'clock if we need to get back on to reconvene or not.
Great. And Alyssa, will you need to send out a new meeting thing, or will we log on in the same way?
I think you should still be able to use just the same link because it'll still be within the scheduled time period. So
Great.
yeah.
Can I ask one question that maybe staff or maybe OB you might know? I thought we had talked about, and we might have to wait till John gets back for the final answer on this, but I remember we were talking about maybe combining a workshop with the county commission and planning commission. I know some of the stuff was happening in October. Are there any updates on what we're anticipating for workshops or special meetings coming up?
Well, I know there's some talk of that. I don't know if there's anything really set in stone as of yet.
Okay.
But yeah, when John gets back, I would love to get a handle on that schedule more and kind of, I know we've been going back and forth about the OAO workshop, continuing that, and maybe that being a joint workshop. And then the HDHO, of course, is looming. And then there's always the general plan stuff. So yeah, we should be able to get a better idea of that once John is back in the office.
Okay, sounds good.
Unless Laura, do you know of anything?
I do not. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's still kind of out there.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I think I would take a motion to adjourn the meeting until 5 o'clock and reassemble. Could I get such a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
See everybody at 5. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.